And we're back with another episode of Getting Technical. This week, it's just Dan and myself, and we're here to talk about some nutrient deficiencies that you might see. And the information that we're going to talk about might help you better identify what a problem is, what a solution might be. But realistically, what we're going to talk about is the difference between mobile and immobile nutrient disorders. So, Dan, what is the difference between mobile and immobile nutrient disorders, and how do we use this to diagnose those different deficiencies and disorders that we see?
Yeah, what's up, Mason? So mobile nutrients are nutrients that can be remobilized within the plant. Once they're uptaken in the plant, they can be remobilized or translocated to areas of higher demand. Immobile nutrients, on the other hand, cannot be remobilized or translocated in the plant. So they basically, once they're uptaken by the plant and moved to their place, they kind of stay put and hang out in their spot. They can't be pulled.
All right, so that makes a lot of sense, because I noticed that when we try to diagnose disorders and deficiencies, some of the questions we talk about, where are you seeing this on a plant?
Yep.
So how do we use that sort of information to diagnose what people are seeing?
Yeah, well, like you said, where the nutrient disorder deficiency is occurring is very valuable information in kind of diagnosing a nutrient disorder. So, as I mentioned, mobile nutrient disorders, they can be remobilized and translocated to areas of higher demand. So, mobile nutrients will first appear on the older growth of the plant, because the plant can pull those nutrients from those older leaves and move them to areas of higher needs, such as the new growth, the new young leaves, right? So again, mobile nutrient disorders appear on the old growth first and then progress their way up the plant. Immobile nutrient disorders, remember, cannot be translocated, or they can't be remobilized within the plant. So immobile nutrient disorders will first begin on the top of the plant where the new growth is. So very common example of that is tip burn in lettuce that we've discussed before. So once we determine whether a nutrient is mobile or immobile, we can start to narrow down on what nutrients are going to be responsible for the particular disorder, right? So we know, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, those are all going to be mobile nutrients, whereas immobile nutrients, we know calcium, boron, copper, iron, manganese, are the immobile nutrients. So we can kind of begin to narrow down, okay, this is a mobile nutrient disorder, it's got to be one of these nutrients, versus this is an immobile nutrient disorder, it's got to be one of these immobile nutrients. So as I mentioned, that can be very useful in starting to narrow that down. It is still sometimes very difficult to really pin it down, because some nutrient disorders look pretty similar, or they may appear different on different species of plants. So in those cases where you're still kind of having a tough time diagnosing it visually, a tissue sample is a very good way to really kind of determine what particular nutrient or nutrients are responsible for the particular disorder that you're seeing.
No,
Yeah.
Dan, it really makes sense. Obviously you're the scientist here, and me and my less scientific brain, I start to understand it and think like it makes sense. Mobile, you start to see those deficiencies in the older leaves because the plant is focusing on new growth. So they're taking all of those nutrients that they're short of and focusing it into those newer leaves. So you see the deficiency in the older leaves. Whereas the immobile ones is, the nutrients are where they are. And so as the plant tries to send nutrients to those new leaves and they don't have those nutrients to send there, you start to see the deficiency there. So that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
And, you think about it, like it's common sense too. So it's not something, crazy scientific that you can't figure out on your own, but, to take a look, it gives you a better idea to diagnose those. Real quick, Dan, like, I don't know, you mentioned some, deficiencies, but what are some common mobile deficiency, like nutrient, or like what are some common mobile
Sure.
nutrients and what are some common immobile nutrients?
Yeah. So some common mobile nutrients, Mason, would be nitrogen is a very common. So your NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium are all mobile. Magnesium is also a mobile nutrient disorder. So it's going to start kind of towards the bottom of the plant or the old growth, making its way up. Immobile, big ones that you know are very common is iron. And that usually happens as the pH gets a little bit high and iron availability is decreased. And calcium is another very common immobile nutrient deficiency that occurs, and that's typically associated with low transpiration and things like that. But one interesting note there is you notice that magnesium was a mobile deficiency, calcium is an immobile deficiency. So they are very different symptomology and they're not related. So a lot of times you may hear, I have a CalMag deficiency. Well, you know, it's not very common. You know, the
You
calcium
have both.
deficiency appears on the new growth. The magnesium deficiency appears on the older growth. And again, they could certainly occur at the same time, but it's not, they're not associated with each other. One does not cause the other. You don't, you know, they're not one disorder. It's, you know, you may have a calcium disorder or a magnesium disorder. And, you know, by chance, again, they could occur at the same time, but very different disorders, and the symptomology is much different between those two nutrients.
So you're saying the solution isn't to just always add CalMag.
I'm saying the solution is not always going to be adding CalMag.
So, all right, Dan. Well, do you got anything else for us today?
I think that kind of wraps it up, Mason. You know, kind of going back to basics with the immobile and mobile nutrients, but it's very valuable, again, when you're going to diagnose nutrient disorders and trying to figure out, you know, what particular nutrient is causing this. So, very basic thing, but very valuable resource.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. We're here to give you the answers to the questions you might not even know you have. So, yeah, until next time, thanks for joining us this week. And if you guys have questions or want to hear us discuss a topic, leave it in the comments, send us an email, and yeah, we'll get back to you. All right, guys, take care.